Nice to meet you, Sean.
Mm.
Welcome to Stuttering Society. Thank you so much for taking the time to talk to us, to share about you, about your projects and everything. It's really nice to get to know you.
Yeah, we're very excited to do so. Thank you for being patient about all the internet business as well. Takes a while.
No, no worries. I know. And you are in the UK, right?
I am, yes, in Worthing on the Sussex coast here, the south coast of England.
I would love to start by asking you if you could please introduce yourself for those who don't know you yet.
Yep. I'm Sean Benjamin William Parker. Um, I was born Ben William Parker, but I couldn't say Ben for the first to 20 years of my life. And so I added Sean to the beginning of it because of my stammer, and it stuck. And so I changed by default, and I've been Sean since 1995. But I use all three names so that I don't upset my mum too much. Um, I'm a writer, artist, musician, and academic. That's what my CV says. And I do all these activities with a degree of intensity. A lot of them are based around the English language. I have a great love for it, which is interesting and telling given the stammer. And I'm always open to discussing that, of course. I've done lots of things. I'm 48. But 6 months ago, I published Compelling Speech, The Stammering Enigma, which is my eighth book, eighth book. And it's been very well received. It's got some lovely reviews from Stammer and from Joanna Williams, who's a very respected writer, etc. And so I'm trying to talk to people about it, to tell people about it, and to reach out to the stammering community, such as it is, and to put myself out there and to talk about this thing that we do, and to normalize it as best as possible, that kind of thing.
It's really impressive that you have published 8 books.
Mm,
Um,
thank you.
I also wanted to ask you, what challenges and the learning experiences did stuttering bring to your life?
I changed the name in the first place there in '95 when I was working for a furniture warehouse in Britain called MFI. Lots of your British viewers will know MFI as a big chain here in the '80s and '90s. And I was answering the phone. Hello, Ben speaking. How may I help you? And I couldn't get the Ben out. It'd be a real block, but one that I didn't have the tools to overcome at that time. Stammering wasn't so talked about. I'd only had a bit of therapy, and it was getting me down. And the boss said, "Can you change your name for the purposes of work?" And I talked to my then wife about it, and who thought it was a bit an odd request, but whatever you want to do. And I thought it was the pragmatic solution. Really, I didn't want to lose that job. I thought his solution was pragmatic, as I say, practical. So I added Sean, having some Irish heritage, and because I can that sound out then. But now I can't do so well, but Ben's no problem. So it's these things can turn around. And, so that was obviously the first. Well, not the first, but the stammer is in the back of your tongue and the back of your mind all of the time as a stammerer. But older you get, in my experience, and lots that I know, it becomes less and less intense, and that's the best news that you can give to the stammerer and to their families who are worried. And it depends how you see it. If you're a cheerful person, you'll be a cheerful person who stammers, and if you have a tendency to be a depressive, you'll be a depressive person who stammers. They're not actually, I don't think personally they're as linked as people would like to make out sometimes. And because we're just as complex and everything as anybody else, we just do this thing with our speaking, and this thing isn't always kind of the life ending, and it can be modified. And because it can be modified, I have questions about the disability status. I don't object to disability status, but I have constant questions about it because I'm an academic. I'm a questioning guy, and I like to not just accept stuff, to probe it, especially when I'm doing the thing myself.
So, as a musician, academic, and author, you are most likely very, very, very often invited to like speak, to give, interviews, and you have to use verbal communication to be able to promote your work. How do you handle public speaking as a person who stutters?
Yeah. If it comes to the music, because of the nature of music and singing, the times that I sing, because I do guitar and all the rest of it as well. But when singing, I haven't done this for some time, by the way, but you're in a different place anyway. So giving an interview would be a place for stammering, but on stage singing is not, because as everybody knows, for this strange reason, we don't tend to stammer when we sing. Apparently, there's a couple who do, but generally, you go to this other place of communication where it doesn't exist anymore, and it's all been and that's been great since I was sort of 15 years old. So when it comes to being a musician, it's almost it's a place away from stammering. So it doesn't come into existence unless you're talking to an engineer about how you want something to sound, or and the music is so much more important than the speech that you're using in order to get something else done, that it doesn't matter. It's just the thing that you're doing on the way, and the engineers don't mind, and the audience and things. If you stammer between songs while talking, I'm not particularly shy. I mean, I can be shy sometimes, but I'm not particularly shy. If I'm on stage, I can talk to a group of people, and if the stammer comes in that position, it's not because of them, it's because of what I'm telling them. So it's the stammer can come at that point, but they're going to, by and large, see it as kind of endearing. So, you know, people in kind of, I hear that people are bullied because of stammering, and at school I was a little bit, but as an adult, there's a lot more tolerance for it. Than the thing is that we get sympathy, and we don't want that. I don't want sympathy. Some people do. Some people like the space and to be treated special. I don't share that so much, but I I do try to be kind to people who do, because as we say, we're all diverse and we all respond to these things in different ways, and some of us are a bit more just kind of want to be on the communication level where people don't care about such things. That's where I like to be, and where I spend quite a lot of time, depending on who I'm with. And if it comes to interviews, academic speaking, and kind of podcasts, things like that, the podcast revolution has been amazing. It's because this kind of process of speaking to you now, looking at myself whilst looking at you, there's something that short circuits the pre-thought in a stammer, and for mine anyway, something kind of akin to the devices that you have behind the ear, that industry of those hearing, which I've thought about getting from time to time. I don't know why I've never gone there, but I haven't. I don't know if you have. And so this experience is a little bit like that. It's like a short circuit loop. So it's and because we're talking about stammering, there's almost no problem at all. When I'm talking about justice reform, which I do in the academic stuff, I will usually tell the person that I do stammer, by the way, and it's nothing to do with you. And they're like, no problem, no problem. I'm like, I know it's not a problem. I'm just telling you that I stammer. Yeah.
I think it's great that you managed to handle public speaking as a person who likes stuttering in such a nice way, with so much grace also, because it really requires sometimes a bit of a conscious effort to not worry about what people will be thinking about how I'm talking, and what if I struggle here and there, and just do what you have to do with the confidence, with grace, with a smile, and everything will go fine, like everything will go well. But you did mention you recently launched your book, the 80th book, Compelling Speech, the Stammering Enigma. What is the message that you would like your readers to get from this book? And do you have any future projects to launch also, other books, and what has been your previous books also about?
Compelling speech. I started to write it during lockdown there, as they call it, whilst I was kind of in a different place here in the UK, on Dartmoor, and I was attempting to write something autobiographical, I guess, which related to the TED talk I gave in 2013, called Stammering and Creativity, which I gave in Istanbul when I was living there. After having taught English and cultural studies for 10 years, I'd got to a place where I understood my stammer. You know, we'd come to an accommodation. You know, the whole kind of word cure doesn't come into it anymore, hasn't come into it for me for years, because it just becomes increasingly modified and you have increasing ways to deal with it, and you get along, you know, and it becomes a part of your speech too, which is the healthiest thing, I think. I wanted to put all that into a little autobiography type thing, and it's actually what I've started to call it. It's an autobiography of the stammer. So things that I've done in life, with the artistic activities and all that, are in there anecdotally attached to observations about how I'm thinking about the stammer at different parts of my life. So from before going out to Istanbul to be a musician and a teacher, I had some speech therapy in London between my masters and going out there, because I really wanted to be a teacher. I wanted to teach of some sort. I was thinking art at the time, but it turned out to cultural studies and English, because it's a big industry in Istanbul. So I got some training to be the teacher, but I knew I had to somehow grab the nettle of the stammer, as we say. And so I kind of went to the city lit in London, under the tutelage of Carolyn Cheeseman and her team. And I learned so many interesting things with the voluntary stammering, and the fact that replacements, sort of sounds, aren't evil. They're just things that we do to get somewhere else, you know, like a stile over a fence. So when you see a block coming in or a thing you'll have trouble with, it's okay to make a replacement sound to get over that. Mm. Which kind of, as you were talking about earlier, people don't understand what you're doing, and they don't understand. Why would they? I can't understand a person who has epilepsy or a limp that they've had since childhood. I'm like, why don't you just exercise that limp? Or what? You know, you don't really understand somebody else's thing, and everybody's got a thing. There are some people who have many, many things, of course, but this thing we do, because it doesn't, you can't see it, everything else looks fine, you know, but there it comes. People can't actually empathize with that too well, except some wonderful speech therapists who happen to love this stuff. And so, yeah, I was there putting this thing together, and then I've because I write on other things as well, as you mentioned. The book before that, last year's book, 2022, was States of Independence, Pop Art, Art Rock, and Beyond, which is about art, because I write about art and music as well. So that was all in there during the same isolated time of lockdown. I'd also done that, so I put that out and it did its thing, and then I put this one out this year and it's doing its thing now. Thing is, this one's so much more personal. It's the most personal thing I've done. It's the most relatable when it comes to other people who stammer, and also people who want a bit more of an insight into the human aspects. You know, the books I've done so far was to Salt in the Milk, to 10 years in Istanbul, which was 10 years ago now. So and that did quite well. And then a bunch of books about kind of cultural theory and studies, up until the one I did last year, but also some poetry. I've got a couple of poetry books out, and I've contributed to a bunch of other things as well, particularly in the justice reform field, which I've been involved in over the last couple of years with Bristol University. So yeah, there's a little oversight into what I do in the writing. It's much more complex than that, but that's the frame.
I'm actually curious, why did you choose Turkey? Like, why did you go to Turkey? Were you invited to move there for work, or you were actually living there and then you found, a job there? How did it work for you? And also, did you learn Turkish? Was it difficult for you? Did you stutter more or less in Turkish, or is the same?
Evet, Türkçe konuşabilirim biraz, which means I can speak a little bit of Turkish, but it's been a few years. In 2003, on the masters, after it, I had some postgraduate depression, I think they call it, and I didn't know what to do. Once you've done your masters, you're like, what do I do? A PhD? What do I do? Whatever. And I was living in Surrey here in the UK, Kingston. Perhaps you know Kingston, possibly. And I met a bunch of Turkish people, and they were so cool. I really liked them very much. And then when they went all kind of went home at the same time, I really missed them. So and so I combined the depression feeling. I'm not talking a proper depression here, just like a low ebb of like what to do, and a bit of politics. I was also very disturbed by the Iraq War and what the media were doing in terms of Islam. Just like every Islamic person you know is evil. That's what the papers were full of every single day for 2 years. And then the Iraq War, which turned out to be illegal. And I just felt, and I've got all these great Turkish friends there, half of whom are Christian and half were Muslim, and they just seemed so nice, so normal, so unneurotic. That right, I'm going for a holiday. So I went out there to have a holiday there for a couple of months, and it turned into 10 years because I just got into the culture of the city. I was thinking to come home in a couple of months. It's just you get sucked in sometimes, don't you? And perhaps just the fates decided that I was going to be there for a little while. And it's a healthy thing to live in a different country for a while, as I'm sure you'll agree. So.
And what are the 3 things that you wish everyone knew about like stuttering or about people who stutter?
I suppose the first one that we've kind of talked a little bit about already is that we are just like everybody else with this thing that we do. Yeah, there's different intensities of the stutter, and also we are all individual enough to see it in different ways, and it can affect us in different ways. So yeah, it's a diverse thing. This is an overused word, diverse, but for people who stammer, it's really an appropriate one because it doesn't define us. This thing isn't the thread that holds us all together, but we have a shared understanding of what it's like to do it and to be kind of out of control of it. Though I can see that you've got some control techniques. I've got control techniques myself just to get over those little bumps. And there's another thing. So point 2 for people who stammer themselves or the stutter is that, and what I say in the book there is, the more you speak, the less the stammer is intense. So it isn't like getting rid of the stammer because I'm speaking all the time. It's just the more that you speak, the less you worry about if you're fluent or not. So because what we want to do is get rid of the stress behind it, right? Not the thing itself is just a part of speech, irritating though it can be for us. But it's the tension that it causes us that is the best thing to get rid of, that kind of stress behind it. So the more you speak in whatever way, even if you're an introverted type person, just start to rattle anyway, at whomever. And it will just get better in the sense of less stressful. Because when it comes to the stammering pride thing, I do believe in accepting what you do. I accept that I'm a stammer, but I also know that I feel better when I don't stammer, and I don't want to deny that obvious fact to me. So those two thoughts can exist in the same head. I accept that I stammer, but I prefer it when I don't, and that's how I feel about the acceptance of it.
One question that comes to my mind, and I'm just actually curious about it. Is there any difference as a person who stutters, being a musician or being, let's say, a professor? Is that easier being a musician because you don't have to say as much, you just have to say a few words before playing maybe, or before singing and afterwards? or is it easier to be a professor? I don't know, like, is there any difference as a person who like stutter? Because both roles require public speaking. And I was just curious how that plays.
That's a fair question. When it comes to academia, I'm kind of quite new, so I haven't. I'm actually quite text-based at the moment. I'm sort of pretty much an editor. So generally, I'm doing things on computers, so it's the English language on type. But I do actually do Zoom meetings, kind of sort of like this with other academics. So they they don't care about the stammer. All they care about is the subject. So or that's what they pretend anyway. So it doesn't come into things. It's about what you're talking about. Is it sourced? Is it serious? That kind of thing. So and when I'm talking about that kind of thing, yeah, the stuttering just doesn't come into it. I don't know why that is, but the subject itself becomes a bit more important. And if it does come, as with any other communication, with any other kind of person, you still have your tricks to get over them. You know, to do the little sort of repetitions that we do, just to help. You know, and the more you do those little repetitions, the easier it gets. You know, that's a good term, easier as opposed to better, because yes, it's not better, it's just another way of speaking, okay, but it's easier for us, and that's the part that I like. When it comes to the music, it's an art form, and it's also partly physical. So if they're seeing you there, you know, with a guitar, there's a part of an element to entertain or to pose in a certain way, or I don't know, you're holding a guitar or you're delivering a song, so the actor in you comes out. You know, when you're watching Elton John doing his thing there, or yourself, you know, there is not just you, there's this way that you're delivering it. And there's kind of Mr. Gareth Gates, who was, have you heard of Gareth Gates? Do you
I
remember
don't
that
think
name?
so.
No. About 20 years ago, he won Pop Idol here. Well, he came second actually, but it was one of the biggest TV moments of the century so far. I can't bear all that stuff, but he won it, and it's a beautiful looking man. You know, at that point, he was a young man, and the country fell in love with him. He had an extremely severe stammer, so on the daytime sort of TV sofas, he would sit there stammering, and the camera would stay on him, quite patient, you know, quite interestingly, watching his pain, and it was really quite intense. Then he would sing, and it's all gone, and this voice of an angel comes out, and everyone's trying to understand this. So he did a brilliant thing in kind of bringing the stammering to, and that weird part of it, which is, I don't think the neurologists have quite got to it yet, but I think they're close. But different pathways doing different jobs, you know, and so there he does it. He was, you know, despite the fact I don't like things like kind of Pop Idol, because I'm very serious about artistic culture, I don't like to see it being packaged in that way. So in a couple of my other books, I've been a bit hostile about him, but also saying, but I'm going to always love him because of the stammering, but I hate him because of the music. So we got that stuff going on in my books too, because we're all people doing other aspects of things. Yeah, but when it comes to myself, the stammering does not take a precedence in either of those two disciplines, because it's about information. The stammer will come out when there's information to be given, and with those things, it's not always just about information, it's about how you put it across. So yeah.
So you are much more focused on the content than how you are talking, how you are presenting this content. I get it. And
That's right.
what have inspired you to write so many books? Do you have something, some kind of, you know, inspiration, or it changes over time?
That's a great question. I mean, I'm just according to my boss at Bristol University, I'm a super creative. This is, that's one of mine. If this is a video, so they can see that I do lots of creative work all the time. I always have since I was 14. I love being busy and doing stuff, making stuff. I'm an artist and writer. What I think with these books is kind of after I'd achieved a certain degree of success in Istanbul as a musician, 2013-14, I kind of went, well, I don't have that much more to say in music, no more comments, but it's just I'd kind of achieved what I wanted to, or what I thought I was capable of in terms of music by then. So I still kind of refer to it lovingly, but it's then. And then also after that, it's like, well, let's put it into the English word, which I'm better at, in a sense. I mean, I really get a joy out of kind of getting an article right, getting a book finished, submitting an article to Empowering the Innocent. I get an actual joy out of doing these things. So and the more you do it, the better you get, and the more joy you get because you're more on top of your craft. So I think that is actually connected to the stammer too, in the sense of not being able to communicate for years and years, internalizing quite a lot of things, but they're all positive. I don't think in a negative way. I think in a positive way, mostly. So these things tend to become things to be expressed sort of later on, and for me, it was then in writing it, and it continues to be so, and it gets better and better because you never know when that story's gonna. I mean, I got a lot of things done over lockdown and being in that other place. So I've got this whole kind of creative store which now I'm editing through to be kind of sort of published slowly, and the stammering is just a part of it, but it's the most personal part of it.
That's great. Thank you so much for answering the question. And what would be the advice that you would give to people who stutter, and particularly those who have a role in public speaking, or who maybe want to be a bit more comfortable with like public speaking, being on stage or a presentation, or as an artist, people who deal with like public speaking on a weekly basis, on a daily basis, what would be the advice that you would give them?
The best thing about this sort of century that we're living in now, 21st century, is that people are trying to be open about and transparent about disability issues. So there is much more scope for disclosure than there was back then. And this can't be a bad thing, whatever your views on disability rights and all the rest of it are. If you do this stuff, disclosing isn't going to go against you. I think people are starting to realize it's not about weakness, if that's what you're worried about. And of course, even if it is about weakness, that's not necessarily a bad thing either. So they've come to that point in culture where don't be afraid to disclose it. If you're going to give a talk, then I find it's much easier to tell someone I'm going to stammer. Yes, we get that, oh, it's fine thing, but don't worry about how they respond. Just worry about what you're doing, because you can't control their reactions and you shouldn't try, But the other thing which is even more helpful, I think, as I've hinted before, is that the more you speak, the less you care about it. So get yourself into, if you're not just if you're a person who just hates speaking to people, fair enough. But if you hate speaking to people because of your stammer, then probably a good way is to go kind of past that and into just kind of communicating, just to get yourself into the habit of not caring so much. And that would be my bit of advice for today.
No, that is great. That is fantastic, because we so often worry too much, maybe, what people will think about that, about us. And how can people find your books and your latest book as well?
Yes, if they Google Sean B.W. Parker, Sean B.W. Parker, that's my name. Compelling Speech is the name of the book. Then up it comes, and they can buy it there on Amazon. Is the most handy one. I think there's a couple of sites it's available on, but everybody knows Amazon, and that's where all the sales seem to come from. So that's how to get it. And if they want to keep up with my news, like this sort of thing, they can come to my Twitter, Sean B.W. Parker there. That's my brand. So
Nowadays, it's not Twitter anymore, it's X.
X, yes, of course, absolutely. Whatever he's up to.
It's very
Still
different,
Twitter to me for a
right?
while.
Oh, yeah, no. Sean, thank you so much, Sean, for coming here today, for sharing with us all of your insights. And, it's so inspiring, so encouraging to see you doing so many things, being an artist, being an author, being what you want to be. It's very encouraging. So I just really want to thank you for sharing. I want to congratulate you for also your latest book. I really, really hope that you have a lot of, success with the book and with everything that you're doing, because you do a lot of things.
Yeah.
You're gonna have success, continue to have success with everything that you're doing.
Thank you so much, Ryan. It's really, really, really good words. Really nice to hear. And yeah, the stammering isn't sort of something that you are. It's just something you do. And not you, you as in our audience. And yeah, just keep going and keep chatting.
Thank you so much, Sean. Have a lovely day.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.